Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Road to City Hall. I'm Dominic Carter. Tonight, we bring you the first official general election debate of the Public Advocates race. This event is sanctioned by the city's Campaign Finance Board. The board is an independent, nonpartisan city agency which administers the campaign finance program, publishes the New York City Voter Guide, and of course administers debates. The program gives public matching funds to candidates for city office who agree to limit contributions and spending and provide full disclosure of their finances. To qualify for public matching funds, citywide candidates who have a minimum level of public support must, by law, participate in debates, which are sponsored by media outlets selected by the board. Tonight's debate is being sponsored by New York One, New York One Noticias, New York City Newsday, and WNYC Radio. And not only is this debate being brought to you live on New York One and WNYC Radio, AM 820 in English, but also in Spanish on New York One Noticias. The second official debate will be broadcast on October 23rd, that's the scheduled time, at 11:30 a.m. on Channel 4, WNBC. We will now introduce the two candidates, Democratic Party candidate Betsy Gotbaum and Conservative Party candidate Jay Golub. The format of tonight's debate is as follows. I will directly ask one candidate a question. The candidate will then have 90 seconds to respond. The other candidate will have a 60-second rebuttal, and then the first candidate will be allowed to have a 30-second response. I will have the right to ask follow-up questions which will not be taken out of the candidate's allotted time. The candidates will also have opportunities to ask each other questions. We'll also have a series of lightning round questions, followed by 1-minute closing statements by the candidates. I will begin things tonight with this question to Ms. Gotbaum. And I will say up front, a sort of, if you will, tough question for each of you. If someone waved a magic wand and the office of public advocate disappeared, would any New Yorker notice that it disappeared, and why?
Well, Dominic, I do believe that many New Yorkers would be very, very upset if the office disappeared. I believe that the thousands of people that we help through individual calls every year would miss it, but I also believe the hundreds of thousands that some of the programs that we have been able to do in the last 3.5 years would be seriously affected if the office weren't here. So I stand by my statements all the time that this is a very important office for New Yorkers. It not only helps the individual who has problems with government, it helps with larger problems of government, and therefore becomes a check on the all-powerful and very powerful mayor. And I believe that's a very important role, as well as the role of helping the individuals, which often leads to the solving of much larger problems. Can I give an example, or am I running out of time?
No,
I think the best example that I give, and I think you've heard it many times, Dominic, is one call about food stamps led us to find out that there were 800,000 New Yorkers eligible for food stamps who weren't getting them. They weren't getting them for a whole bunch of reasons. A lot of it kind of a bureaucratic mess. A lot of it just inaccessibility, partially caused by offices not being open when they should, not enough outreach, and frankly, not doing enough outreach and pushing people to understand that if they're eligible, they should get food stamps. So we did a program. I was able to raise private money, worked through local organizations, and we were able to bring a lot more people into the food stamp program. Now, not only did we help that one man who had been denied food stamp, but we helped at least 200,000, maybe 150,000 New Yorkers who are eligible. So I believe it's really important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Golub.
Well, I mean, nobody would have brought this up 4 years ago. They're bringing it up now. 4 years ago when Mark Green was mayor, nobody was public advocate. Nobody was bringing up whether the job should be around or what the role of the job was. Unfortunately, Betsy, over the last 4 years, has made the media and a lot of people question why we have this job. She says somebody called, we made changes. Why does it take somebody to call to make changes? The role of the public advocate is as watchdog of city government, and the key to that is looking out for things without waiting for people to call. There's so many things the public advocate can do. There's so many powers within the charter as it exists. And just today, I announced 3 changes to the charter that I'd like to make that would make the office more clear, concise, and more powerful for the people of New York City. So maybe right now nobody would cry if this office disappeared, but get a good public advocate in for 4 years, that would change.
Thank you very much, Public
I
Advocate.
can respond. Well, first of all, they did try, the city government, the mayor tried to get rid of this office under Mayor Giuliani when Mark Green was public advocate. So to say that nobody wanted to get rid of it then is not quite accurate. Second of all, we always, I just gave you the food stamp example because somebody called in, we often go after issues that we see, that we know are bothering people or problems with the city, issues that I think are terribly important. Yes, we do, and I think we play a very important role in that, and the one that I can cite tonight is the stadium, the West Side Stadium.
Okay, Public Advocate, and we'll come back to you in just a couple of minutes here for a question. But Mr. Golub, the tough question, if you will, for yourself, I'm sort of scratching my head, and perhaps others watching might do the same. The last time you were here for a public advocate debate, you were running in the Democratic primary.
Sure.
Tonight, you're here as the conservative candidate.
Right.
With that move, does that open yourself up to the charge of being a political opportunist? And also, would you not even qualify for tonight's debate if a loan had not been made to your campaign?
No, I mean, well, maybe so. I don't really know. And honestly, that loan came from me. I've put my own money into this campaign. I haven't asked anybody to do such a thing. Does it make me a political opportunist to run on different lines? I don't believe so. I think the people of New York City are nonpartisan. That's the reason why you see a mayor in a city that's 5-1 Democrat-Republican that's Republican. And you see, for the last 12 years, we've had a Republican mayor. My background is as an independent observer of politics, someone who, as a private citizen, decides to stick his neck out on the line and run. And I do this because I really believe in the issues that I support, and that's why I'm here. Political opportunism, you know, I see the way the political system works today. The primary that you're talking about, the debate that I was in, 15% turnout in that debate. That's 8% of all registered voters that are out there right now. And theoretically, every race besides the mayor in this one, because we're competing in it, is already been decided. That is an unacceptable political situation for New York City. And most New Yorkers are not partisan people. They look at somebody with issues and ideas, they support that person. It's irrelevant what party they're from. I've been a Republican, I'm now a Democrat, I'm endorsed by the Conservative Party, I've been endorsed by the Independence Party, and I'm now endorsed by the Reform Party. The issue is about issues, not about partisanship. Partisanship should end because this city cannot afford the type of partisan behavior that's been going on.
Thank you very much. Response?
Well, my response to that would be there was a charter on there was a charter proposed to the city of New York to end partisan elections. I guess it was a year ago or 2 years ago. I forget when. 2 years ago. And in spite of the fact that the current mayor spent about $8 million to promote nonpartisan elections, that got roundly defeated by the citizens of New York City who voted against not having nonpartisan elections. And I believe that I represent and am part of a democratic tradition and democratic values. I'm very proud of being a Democrat. I don't necessarily think it's bad to have other parties. I think it's a good idea to have debates and honest debates, and I think it's good to air different opinions to the public. But I'm very proud about being a Democrat, and I'm very proud that this city, New York City, is a democratic city and has a lot of democratic values and promotes those values. The fact that we've had Republican mayors is a very interesting phenomenon, and I hope we'll change that this year.
Rebuttal?
I mean, I have to say tongue-in-cheek, I'm proud to be a Democrat, too. I mean, that's kind of what the joke is. All it takes to be a Democrat in the city is to check the box that says Democrat. It's irrelevant to what issues you stand for. You know, you bring up the charter revision, it's a great point. I'm so happy you brought it up. There was 12% turnout in the 2003 off-year election. Now, if there was a normal turnout in a normal general election, you would not have seen that because you go on the streets and you talk to people about partisan elections. None of them are partisan as much as the people within your party, the Democratic Party that you're so proud of. That's a 12% turnout. That's not some kind of roundly defeating situation. If we had a normal turnout and the people that brought this up unfortunately brought it up in that year, bring it up in a year when most people turn out to vote, you would see that measure pass, and we'd bring nonpartisan elections to New York City like most other cities in this country have.
Well, first of all, I can't possibly agree with that, because where were those people? Were they hiding? Why didn't they come out and vote if they felt that that nonpartisan elections were important? First of all,
Off-year elections have low turnout. We had 12. Do you think 12% turnout is a mandate by the people of New York City?
I just think it's what it is. It's what happened. The mayor spent $8 million.
What does the mayor have to do with this?
Because he spent money promoting.
I know,
yes,
but this is about nonpartisan elections, not about the mayor.
No, it was the mayor who proposed that on the charter. He is the only person, once he proposes something on the charter, it's there. And he proposed it. He spent the $8 million promoting it, and it was defeated. Now, all I can say is it was defeated and it was fair.
Do you think 12% is defeated? I'm asking
Yes,
you simple.
absolutely,
So you
because
think
it
a
was.
12% referendum on the city of New York, the 12% of the voters that came out, all motivated by special interests, all motivated by the political
Well, why
party
weren't the special
establishment?
interests that you're talking about motivated to come out and vote
There
for it?
is no special interest. These are regular people. These regular people that are out there don't have large groups of Democrats and large groups of special interests that fight for things
But
in
you're
New York
just saying
City.
there are more
The
of them than there are Democrats.
The 15% turnout that turned out in the primary that everybody is touting as some huge victory by you is not a huge victory by you. It's your ability to buy off all the party organizations, be able to contribute directly to their funds, and get them to turn out and get them to volunteer and hand stuff out on the street. This is about political growth.
I'll go back to the questions in just 1 second. But you just used the term, Mr. Golub, buy off. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, most political clubs work in the sense that if you can help contribute to their clubs, they're going to go out on election day and do things for you. Now, as far as I'm concerned, all the political clubs I've ever dealt with, they volunteer for such things. I've never seen a situation where somebody said to me, I'm going to endorse you if you give me X amount of dollars. Now, if you look at the spending that goes on in campaigns, you'll find that a lot of the candidates give money to clubs for things like get out the vote, for primary day operations. What does that exactly mean? I mean, if a Democratic Party organization is involved in helping campaigns, why do they need money to be able to do such a thing when they're doing it out of their belief and their ideology about what these issues are all about? I mean, in the end, nonpartisan elections was a mistake to bring it up in 2003. Bring it up any other time and you'll see it pass. Bring it up any other time where the voters, most voters, come out and vote, not when there's 12% or very slanted turnout, you'd see something change.
Okay. Let me move on to the next question, and it's for you, Betsy Gotbaum. The big local story in the news lately has been the subway terror threat announced by the mayor last Thursday. Federal officials have downplayed the threat, saying that it was unfounded. What should the city government do to alert citizens of a possible threat? When should the city alert citizens of a possible threat? And did the mayor act too quickly?
Well, first of all, I believe that the most important thing for me as public advocate, and I think the most important thing for the mayor and the police commissioner and everybody else that I know in government, is to make sure that citizens are safe. And I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I don't think the mayor and the police commissioner or anybody else overreacted. I believe that their cautionary act and putting the police in the stations and all of that, Dominic, I believe that that was something that was needed to be done, because they did get information from Washington. From what I have read and what I see, they got information that there were informants saying that there might be an attack in the city last week. I'm sorry. We have a huge subway system, and we need to be protected. And I think they took the right steps.
Your reaction?
I agree. I think the mayor did the right thing, and I don't think there's anything else he could have done. When you get any kind of specific threat like that, you need to be able to react. Now, how did we react? We put all our police officers to work. Now, part of the problem, as I see it with Homeland Security and what we're dealing with right now, is we have 5,000 less police officers than we did on 9/11. That's an unacceptable situation, and what happens is when you do respond to these threats, you now are taking officers from other places and putting them in the subways. You're not even seeing all the transit people out on the subways. You're seeing regular beat cops and cops in other areas going into the subways. We need more police officers. One of the things that I will really fight for as public advocate is to get us back to the 41,000 officers we had on 9/11. And on top of that, I think we should have a reserve force ready to go in case of an emergency. And I propose creating a 10,000 person reserve force of retired cops, retired military, so that when the emergency actually occurs, we don't have to take cops from other places that they're needed to be able to respond to an emergency.
Your final rebuttal on this. Is there anything that a public advocate can do to get more police officers on the streets of New York?
No, except for talk about it. But let me just say that I believe that with the 5,000 fewer police officers that we have on the street supposedly since 9/11. Crime is down 20%. So I have to say that we don't really know whether we really need 41,000 police. And I leave that in the hands of, I believe, the best commissioner in the city of New York that we've ever had is Ray Kelly. And I believe how he runs this police department is extremely efficient and very well run. Second, I believe that having the police in these various activities is very heartening for the population. People see them and they feel better. I believe that it also is deterrent. So all this put together, I think that the way they're managing the police department, I have to give them very high grades.
Oh, I just want to say, I mean, I agree that the police department is being managed exceptionally well. That's not the point here. The point is, you can't hide the fact that we have 5,000 less officers. In the case of an emergency, how could anybody argue that we're better off with less officers
Well,
than
how
more?
come crime is down?
Crime is down because of the work of Ray Kelly and of the work of
We
Mayor
have 5,000
Bloomberg.
fewer officers. You just said that.
So you're saying that we should definitely keep
I don't
cutting
think
the police force as long as crime
I don't
stats
think
go
anybody
down?
knows better than Ray Kelly how many police officers we actually need in this
Nobody's
city.
saying we know better.
Well, you just did. You said 41,000 is better than 38,000.
I'm saying a tautology. I'm saying something that is clear in the facts. More officers are better. The only reason why we have
How do you know
5,000
more?
less officers is because we don't have the money to pay for the officers. There's nobody sat down and said, let's create a better security plan for New York City. Let's reduce the force by 5,000. That's not what happened, Betsy.
I think what you're doing is you're implying that Ray Kelly doesn't know how to manage his
No, I'm
police
not.
department. And
Absolutely
he certainly
not.
does know how to manage
Absolute-
it better than I think it's ever been managed, and I've been around a long time.
I'm absolutely not doing that. All I'm saying is something that is very simple to say,
Oh.
which is that more officers is definitely better. If we had the money for them, I guarantee you Ray Kelly and Mayor Bloomberg would have them. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources, and part of what my campaign is about is finding those resources, because in the end, we are wasting money in our own government and we are giving money away to the federal and state government. If we started correcting those things, we'd have more money for more Homeland Security funds. Unfortunately, we don't right now.
Mr. Golub, the next question is for you. You are running now for public advocate on the conservative line. Are you supporting the conservative candidate for mayor, Tom Agnebenny?
I'm not supporting any candidate for mayor. I think Tom Agnebenny is a great man, and I think Tom Agnebenny has a spectacular record. But as public advocate, it's very important for me not to endorse city council candidates and or mayoral candidates. The reason is I'm going to be in a position to oversee what they do. And I don't want to be in a position in any way that, and I've said the mayor's done a great job. I've said that many times. I said it on the last debate. That's irrelevant to the fact of who I'm going to endorse and who I'm going to support. In the end, as public advocate, you need to be independent, separate from the processes of the legislative and executive branch, and be able to look at things, make a decision based upon the facts, and act. And that's what I would do. That's why I would say, no, I'm not endorsing anybody.
Reaction?
Well, I'm very proud to be a Democrat. I'm very proud that I am supporting the Democratic candidate for mayor, Freddie Ferrer. I believe that the Republican Party has been very bad for this city. I believe that the president is not acting in the best interests of our country, but particularly our city. And so I'm a proud Democrat, and I'm very proud to sit here and say that.
Has Mike Bloomberg been bad for the city?
No, he hasn't been bad for the city. I think he's done a good job managing the city. I have some issues that I take issue with him about, and I've been very outspoken about it. But I'm particularly upset about the fact that he is a Republican and that he supports the Republican Party and he has given money to the Republican Party. That for me is a big problem, because I have real problems with the Republicans, with the issues starting with the war, with some of their stands on social issues that I don't agree with, and therefore I am very proud to be a Democrat.
So if, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, if Mr. Bloomberg has not been bad for the city, you're telling us he should be replaced simply because he's a Republican?
No, I think actually that Freddie Ferrer would be a better mayor. I didn't say that. I wasn't going to say that Mayor Bloomberg has been bad for the city. I just got through saying to Dr. Golub that the police department is better than it's ever been. It's very well managed. Crime is down. So I can't, if I were to say he was bad, I couldn't. That would just be completely inconsistent. So that's how I'm explaining it, Dominic.
Mr. Golub?
This is why nonpartisan elections would have passed, because this is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. He's done a good job, but he should be replaced by somebody who has very different policies than what the mayor has. And this is a partisanship for the sake of partisanship. This is what's wrong with New York City right now. And in the end, we should be supporting issues and supporting good candidates and forgetting about partisanship. I was a Republican. I was vice president of New York County's Republican Party. And honestly, at the time, I became a Republican because of the great work of Rudy Giuliani. But in the end, I agree with you. The Republican Party has not been good for New York City, and that's why I left. That's why I joined the Democratic Party, not for some political convenient reason, but because most people in New York City are Democrats, and I started to realize after campaigning a couple times that most Democrats were starting to listen to what I had to say and say, you know what, I agree with what you're saying. And instead, unfortunately, most people in primaries have this attitude like you, that Republicans bad, Democrats good. That is not the mentality of most voters in New York City, and that's why when people go to the polls in November, they're going to make a decision based upon who's the best candidate. They're not going to say, well, George Bush, a Republican, I'm not voting for Mike Bloomberg.
I happen to disagree with you, Dr. Golub, because I really believe that New Yorkers do not ascribe to the Republican policies of this country as not only towards the city, but for example, for the war.
Does Mike Bloomberg prescribe to those policies?
Well, he's a Republican.
Does Mike Bloomberg
money.
prescribe to the policies
you're
talking? You think he does?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a Republican.
You think if he fits the mold of most Republicans nationwide?
All I can do is tell you that Mike Bloomberg has given a lot of money to the Republican Party, a party which I have basic disagreements with, and I'm very, very concerned.
Do you agree with Robert Byrd? Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, do you agree with his general philosophy on life, the comments he's made over the last 5-6 years?
Well, he's not my senator, so.
But he's a Democrat. Do you agree with him?
But he's not a Democrat from the state of New York.
So I'm not sure what I understand what you're saying here, Betsy.
Because Mike Bloomberg is the mayor of the city of New York, and I believe.
But you're talking about the National Republican Party.
Would you let me finish?
Sure,
I believe that as mayor of the city of New York, he's a Republican. He has given a great deal of money to the National Republican Party, as indeed he has to local Republicans in the state. I happen to think that most of the policies, not all of them, but most of the policy of that party, as it affects New York City, have been not what they should have been. One.
All right, so
two,
give me
and
one
the
specific
national,
then. Give me one specific.
We aren't getting enough money from Homeland Security.
Agreed.
We aren't getting enough money for the fire department, for the police department, all the things you just said.
I agree with you.
But my point is, the mayor is a Republican. Why isn't he getting his Republican president and his Republican governor to give more funds and more
all right, let me ask you a question.
For New York
let me just,
City.
I got a response to just that one point. I'm
quickly,
sorry, Dominic.
quickly.
I know it's a debate. We're kind of free-flowing. Right now, we get 85 cents for every dollar we send to Washington, with a Republican Congress and a Republican president and a Republican Senate. What was the ratio that we got from the dollars we sent to Washington when Bill Clinton was president and the Democrats controlled Congress?
No. I probably, I don't know the answer to the question.
The
so
exact
probably
same
the same. I was
ratio.
going to say the same.
See, this partisanship aspect of what my campaign is all about is it's urban. Let me just finish. I'll let you go. Urban versus rural. We are an urban environment. We have urban Republicans. We have urban Democrats. There are rural Democrats and rural Republicans. We have different values than the rural people in this country. The key for us as urban politicians is to fight for the needs of New York City. See, I'm past the party line because there are tons of Democrats out there in the rest of the country who don't care about our fire and police department, and the role of the public advocate in this whole sense is to make people in New York City realize that partisanship is hurting us.
I'll let you respond, but we have to bring it back to the issue at hand.
I just want to respond very quickly. I believe that one of the major roles of the public advocate is to make sure that we get the federal money that's coming in and the state money that's coming in that New Yorkers are eligible for. That's why I always bring up the issue of food stamps. That's why I talk about SCREE. That's why I talk about all of those programs for which New Yorkers are eligible, which they're not getting. And part of that is the fault that we as government aren't getting the information out enough. I believe that is a very, very important role of the public advocate, and I've tried to do that in the last.
Just for the record, you have referred to your colleague here as Dr. Golub, and the reason why, I just want to state for the audience on radio and here on television, you are a dentist, correct? And so you are, in this case, exactly an MD, a doctor here, so that's why you're being referred to as Dr. Golub. But now we want to give each candidate the opportunity to ask a question, a direct question of his or her rival. Now, the candidate will get 90 seconds to respond, and Ms. Gottbaum, you're up first to ask your question.
Okay, I'll call you Jay. Jay, there is a Transportation Bond Act on the ballot in November 8th. And I wanted to know if you were going to, I shouldn't ask you how you're going to vote because we don't ever do that anymore, do we, Dominic?
This is true.
I wanted to know what your opinion was of the Transportation Vote Act and whether you thought it should be voted up or down and why.
I won't say whether I'm going to vote for it or against it right now, but the MTA is in bad shape, and it needs a combination. More importantly, it needs more government funding. part of the issue of what we're talking about here is state and federal funding for our transportation system. We are woefully behind in that, and we are being shortchanged tremendously. The IBO in November of 2004 issued a report, though, at the same time as we're saying there's a lot of difficulties going forward, and basically the report said that we are in better shape now since the capital program started for the MTA. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to look at it, but I think the further going down the same road with the MTA is a good idea. But the key for us is getting more government funding and getting the waste, fraud, and abuse out of the MTA and out of our transportation system, which is a very important role for the public advocate and one that I cannot wait to get involved in.
And now, Mr. Gollop, it's your turn to ask a
do I
question.
rebut?
If you'd like to have
No,
a
I'd just like to say that I think the oversight over the MTA is an extremely important issue, something that I've been involved with for the last 3.5 years. That I do believe there's a huge surplus in the MTA right now, and they're still talking about raising the fare in 2007. So I believe that as part of oversight, we should call on them not to raise the fare, and I do believe we should pass the Bond Act because the infrastructure is so important to this city, which is growing very rapidly. And if we don't have a growing infrastructure, especially where transportation is concerned, we'll be in trouble.
Mr. Gollop?
In our first debate on this program a few weeks ago, you stated that David Dinkins was a better mayor than Rudy Giuliani. Considering that during the bleak days of the Dinkins administration, there were more than 2,000 murders a year, double-digit unemployment, and citywide racial unrest, could you explain to the people of New York City specifically how David Dinkins was a better mayor than Rudy Giuliani?
Well, first of all, you spoke about, and you've spoken about it here, the fact that the police department needed more police officers. It was really David Dinkins with Safe Streets, Safe City that allowed the increase in the police department that occurred in the very end of his administration, but it really occurred in the Giuliani administration. I believe that David Dinkins was able to temper down racial disorder to a large extent during his tenure. There were some problems that occurred, but I believe that he put the lid on what had become fairly negative racial occurrences at the end of the Koch administration. I believe that he had some terrific ideas that he started to implement, and he didn't get a chance to finish them in the second term. So I believe David Dinkins, and I was a commissioner, so there's a little bit of self-interest in here, and I believe I was a very good commissioner. I believe he did some terrific things for the city, and yes, I believe he was better than Mayor Giuliani, because I believe that Mayor Giuliani set a tone that I didn't agree with.
I mean, you just got done saying how it's more important how the department is run rather than how many officers, and now you're touting, the main thing you're touting about Dinkins is he brought more officers in. Not quite sure that makes sense. Some problems, you say in racial problems, you say some problems, like lightly. I mean, Crown Heights, the Korean grocery boycott, these were not minor problems. These were major problems. Rudy Giuliani brought a rebirth of this city, and I think most New Yorkers believe that. They may all be wrong, and you may be right, but I can't imagine that you're going to defend David Dinkins over Rudy. And there's nothing against David Dinkins. I mean, I'm sure tennis expanded tremendously under him, but I can't really understand how you could make an honest evaluation that David Dinkins was a better mayor than Rudy Giuliani. And I understand why you did it in the primary. I can't really understand why you're doing it now.
I'll let you respond.
Well, first of all, when you speak about tennis, that was a rather low blow. In fact, we did expand tennis in the city, and we built a tennis stadium, which I had a part in doing, which is the highest revenue-producing sports arena in this country. Just a point.
Well, at least we found a stadium deal you like.
Well, this was a particularly good one, which I had a part in doing, and it's in a very good location. Second of all, I believe that Mayor Dinkins brought to this city a tenor, a mood, a tone that was very, very necessary at the time that he was elected in 1989.
Then why didn't he get reelected?
Get reelected because there were some mistakes made, and he didn't get reelected because of those mistakes, and Crown Heights was one of them. I think that's true. I'm not about to put any blame on who did Crown Heights and who was to blame. I do think that a mayor who doesn't meet with the African American leadership in this city, is wrong. I think that that was a mood and a tenor that Mayor Giuliani put forth. I think that was wrong.
I think all people benefited from the mayoralty of Rudy Giuliani. I think almost every New Yorker agrees with that, and I'm happy that you stood by your position on this. But I like I said, I'm really kind of confused.
I have a quick follow-up for you before I return to the questions. You referred to Mayor Dinkins and tennis. What does tennis have to do with
I
any
don't know.
of this
People
tonight?
used to talk about tennis. Honestly, I don't know Mayor Dinkins. I don't know him personally at all. All I know is I moved into this city in 1990, and I saw what this city looked like. And I stayed in this city. I've been in this city ever since. And when I decided to first run for government in 2001, it was because the changes that took place under Rudy Giuliani. So I can't imagine, again, from my own personal perspective of seeing drugs, prostitutes on the street, seeing the way the city changed and the way the lifestyle of the city changed. 42nd Street, you could go down the list of the things that changed. But I can't imagine somehow somebody saying, and every time I bring this up with people on the street, they look at me as like, who could possibly answer that question?
I don't know what street you hang out in.
Sunnyside, Queens. Sunnyside, Queens. Go ask them out there, Betsy.
Ask
if you've
some
not
people
been
in
there
Harlem
before.
and Southeast Queens.
Well, let's resume with the questions,
Sorry.
and we'll have a couple of more questions. We'll have you ask another question of each other, and then we will turn to our lightning round, in which you can answer the question with either a yes or a no answer. And here's a question for you, Public Advocate. Some of your opponents in the Democratic primary, including Mr. Gallup, have criticized you for, if you will, lacking an audience with Mayor Bloomberg, saying your relationship with Mr. Bloomberg is so bad you can't really accomplish much, especially after your budget and staff were cut by City Hall. In a second term, if you are reelected, what will you do to reverse this situation?
Well, may I first of all address the situation, which is not accurate, or not, it's certainly not quite accurate. I don't know what they said because I don't remember them being quite that negative. The first person who called me when I won the primary was Mayor Bloomberg. I was very grateful for his call. I have complete access to him anytime I want to. I have access to his commissioners, which is really important in the job as public advocate, because you're trying to get things done, you're trying to make agencies change, you're trying to be a check on certain activities of agencies. You need to be able to have access to those agencies. So I do have access to those agencies. And just to go back to Mayor Giuliani, my understanding was during the Giuliani years, my predecessor had no access to the agencies because the mayor shut down access. Now, having said that, yes, my budget was cut in the first, I guess, 6 months of my term. It was cut about 45%. And you know what? We functioned. I think we did a good job then. I think we've done a good job all the way along with the reduced budget. The budget has now gotten up to where it should be. I hope to keep it the same. I hope to be able to make it an independent budget so that it isn't at the whim of either the mayor or the speaker. And I think it's a very important thing to have an independent budget as public advocate, because then you aren't beholden. If you get somebody mad at you, they can cut your budget. And I think that's wrong if you're going to be the watchdog over city services, or if you're going to be the ombudsperson for city government. So I expect, and I'll finish with this, I expect that we will have, whoever the mayor is, I will have a relationship where I will have access, because I think that's better government. And I think both candidates now believe that making government better is part of their mandate. And I'm looking forward very much to the next 4 years.
Mr. Gallo?
I think it was about 2 years ago, Gabe Pressman asked you a question, Betsy, about whether he thought the mayor was listening to you, and you answered the question by saying, I'm not sure. And I think it's pretty clear that no one's listening to what you're saying. I mean, even the endorsements you got, the New York Times called you disappointing, said you need to push yourself to be more public as you advocate. The Daily News endorsed you, but got through the point where saying haven't made much with the office. I think part of the problem is you don't really have a full understanding of what the charter actually says. For you to say that the public advocate can't get information, I mean, I can read from the charter here if you like. It says the public advocate shall have timely access to those records and documents in city agency which the public advocate deems necessary to complete the investigations, inquiries, and reviews reviewed by this section. If the city agency does not comply with the public advocate's request for such records and documents, the public advocate may request an appropriate committee committee of the council to require the production of such records and documents pursuant to Section 29 of the Charter. And Section 29 of the Charter goes on to say,
Okay.
any
Wait a
standing
minute,
or
wait a minute,
special
wait.
committee...
I never said I couldn't get information. I said I have complete access to every agency that I contact or that contacts me. I mean, I don't know where you're getting that from. I said in the previous administration, the previous mayor
but you said
who
in
you
the
laud,
you said in,
Mr.
okay,
Giuliani,
but you don't need to
did
be
not,
friendly with the mayor.
I'm not
to-
saying I'm
okay,
friendly.
not-
You just told me I
okay.
wasn't friendly. You said you paid
just-
no attention
no,
to
no,
me.
Hold on, let me
You
let
can't
me,
have
all
it
right,
both
let me
ways, man.
clarify if you didn't understand what I was saying. You
Oh,
brought up
I
the
understood.
you brought up the point as if the public advocate can't get information from the mayor.
I
if
didn't bring that up,
You
Dominic.
said in the previous administration that the Mark Green could not get information from Giuliani because he didn't have a good relationship with him. That's a mistake because you can get the information. And let me just finish. I'm sorry. That's what I was talking about. Not you. You have a great relationship with the mayor. That's wonderful.
No.
Okay. Any standing or special committee shall have the power to require the attendance and examine and take testimony under oath of such persons as is deemed necessary. Now, as the 52nd member of the City Council, like you are right now, and as an ex officio member of every single committee, you have the right to work with the committee members and compel them to bring information.
Well, I know exactly
I'm not
what
saying
I have the right to do. I presided over the City Council just today. I have introduced a lot of legislation.
okay.
I have been on a lot of committees. I
The
have sat at testimony. I have given testimony. I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
reason why I bring this up is you continue to downplay what the office can actually
No,
do.
quite the
Every time
contrary.
somebody brings up an issue of, like I bring up about the $24 billion that we're giving away to the federal and state government, you say there's nothing we can do about that. Every time we bring up an issue that you see is outside the purview of this public advocate, you say it can't be done. I personally believe that we can do a lot more with this office. The key is rallying
Can I
people and
respond
using the
to that?
laws that
Yes,
exist.
you can respond.
And then I'll let you
we'll
get
move on
back
to the next question.
I always think you can do better. And I'm looking forward in my next 4 years to absolutely increasing the role of this office and to making it what I believe it can be and which I've always said it can be. I don't understand why in the world Jay would say that I downplay the office. I think it's an extremely important office. I want to make it even more important, and that's why I ran for re-election. That's why I'm looking forward to the next 4 years of making it a very, very important office in New York City. It's the office that it is, and it should be, and I stand on my record.
Okay, question for you, Mr. Golub. Your opponent in this contest, Betsy Gotbaum, has a long history in municipal government and has worked with 3 mayors before becoming public advocate. With no government experience, you have absolutely none. How do you expect to make the necessary connections within city government to accomplish anything in the job?
Ideas and rallying people can make that happen. If I rally people behind an idea and I rally people behind a cause, local representatives will pay attention to that cause. The job of the public advocate as watchdog is a critical one, and it's one that should not wait for people to call you to respond. You can look into ideas, look into new issues, look into new policy. And again, I could read the chart again, but I know it bored you. But the truth is, you have the power as public advocate to introduce legislation and introduce public policy. The key to being able to make that effective as a citywide at-large member of the City Council is to rally people behind the cause. If you don't rally people behind a cause, there's no way for you to be effective. And as the Daily News said, unfortunately, this Office of Public Advocate will probably not be around 4 years from now if Betsy Gotbaum stays in this office. And I think it's a critical role for city government to have a watchdog and a $50 billion budget to be able to find the waste, abuse, and corruption that goes on in city government. You need an independent person, someone that doesn't have a long track record in political circles, because you don't want those connections that may stop you from pursuing one person or pursuing another. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a great asset to me to not have the political experience, but to have the will, the desire, and the interest to serve the public.
Okay, just a hypothetical here. So if you're elected and the city's mayor, Michael Bloomberg, sends a message to his commissioners that says, do not cooperate with him, and the Democrats send a message that say he's not one of our guys, do not cooperate with him. You got the Republicans angry, you got the Democrats angry. What can you get done?
You rally public support on issues. You make people understand that you understand certain issues that you're rallying people around. And as soon as people start to listen to those issues and get behind them, the local elected officials have no choice but to respond and pay attention to to them. They cannot ignore them, even if they hate me for being a Democrat or Republican or whatever I may be. It's all about rallying the public and rallying, working through the media and working through going on the streets.
Okay, public advocate, is that
Well,
the way
first of
things
all,
work?
no, that's not the way things work, and I can assure you that probably the media will pay absolutely no attention to you, because I believe that the way you get things done is by looking at policies. You learn that either from somebody calling or you find out what the policy is. And Jay, when I asked you about the mayor's policy on homelessness, you said you didn't know it. You have to know what the policies of the city are in order to find out if they're right or wrong, or who they're hurting and who they're not hurting. I believe that my experience in government, having been a commissioner, having been an assistant to the mayor, has given me the capacity to be able to understand where things go right and where they're wrong in government. One, let me just finish.
I'm sorry.
Second, when you talk about the endorsements, I got the endorsements. You may not like the fact that I got them. Nobody liked it, but I got them. Sure, there were criticisms, and I'm going to learn from those criticisms. I'm going to do even better in the next 4 years. But I did get the endorsements, and I'm very proud
Which
of the fact that I got them.
endorsements are you talking about?
The Daily News and the New York Times.
Oh.
And you sort of say, well, yes, I'm very proud of those endorsements, and I'm very proud of the job I've done, and of course I will do better, I will do more, and you wait and see.
Final rebuttal before we move on?
You know, it reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit. Remember, I don't know if you remember, anybody remembers this, but George Bush and the Dukakis were on, and Bush kept on saying 1,000 points of light, 1,000 points of light, and Dukakis' character said, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. You know, in the end, what you're saying makes no sense, because I don't know of anybody who truly believes you're doing a good job. And it's not a personal slight against you, Betsy. You seem like a very nice person. But it takes a person to advocate, someone willing to fight against some of the things. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't understand how things work. But the truth is, I'm willing to go in and fight, stand on principle, and do so. And I think that is exactly what we need for this office of public advocate.
Okay, next question for you, Betsy Gotbaum. You are second in line to power at City Hall, but Mayor Bloomberg successfully pushed to have the city charter amended, as you well know, saying that if he dies or is incapacitated, there should be a special election to replace him within 60 days. Under the old charter, you could have served as mayor for as long as 15 months. Which do you prefer? Is 60 days long enough for New Yorkers to prepare for a special election?
Well, first of all, let me say that when I ran in 2001, I agreed that I thought that the term should be shortened because it was too long a time, or it's potentially too long a time. So I said it then, and I agree that it was done, and there it is. It's 60 days. And I feel that because of my experience in government, because of my having run an agency, because of being public advocate for almost 4 years, I think I have a real knowledge and a real understanding of how government works and how it doesn't work. So if it were to happen, I would be ready to step in and take over for the 60 days. And there would be a special election, and that's what the charter said. The vote was very small, but the charter, that's what was voted. And so I live by that, and I think it's fine. And I am ready, absolutely, I am ready. And I believe my experience and my knowledge of government makes me ready.
Ready for what?
To be mayor if something, God forbid, should happen to whomever the mayor is.
Okay.
I'm talking now after November 8th.
Response.
You know, I'm not running for mayor. I'm running for public advocate. If I wanted to run for mayor, I would have ran for mayor. I issued a press release today that I think this is ridiculous that the public advocate becomes mayor, because the public advocate, the qualifications, the qualities that make a good public advocate would not really make a good mayor. And therefore, I think that should be changed. I think the mayor should appoint somebody. It should theoretically be the deputy mayor of operations, should run the city for 60 days. I mean, in the last debate we had here at New York One, Ms. Gotbaum said that she would run for mayor. So not only would she need to learn a new job that she's going to hold for 60 days, she's actually planning on running a citywide campaign for those 60 days to run for the office of mayor. I have no intention of doing that. If I can't get the charter changed by 2006 fast enough once I'm public advocate, and something were to happen to the mayor, I'd grab the deputy mayor and all the deputy mayors and work with them to let them make sure they run the city the right way. It makes no sense for the public advocate to become mayor.
So wait, are you telling us you would violate the law, the charter, and not accept
No,
the job
I mean,
as mayor?
I would accept the job, but I wouldn't pretend that I could run the city. I mean, that would be ludicrous to be able to do. I mean, in the end, I mean, you need to learn a new job. It's a very complicated executive job. It's not one about policy ideas
I don't need
and
to-
mismanagement.
Why did you just say thank heavens?
Well, because I actually don't think that his background, and as good a dentist as he may be, makes him possibly to be mayor. And I believe that my background, having served 3 mayors in various capacities, makes me capable and able to step in. And just let me point out one thing about public advocates saying that public advocate doesn't prepare you to be mayor. Excuse me, you look at the mayoralty and all of the agencies from the inside. So you really know what's going on in the agencies, what's right and what's wrong. And I think that gives you a tremendous position, especially having been there for 3.5 years, and I'll be there for another 4. You have a tremendous ability to understand how government works and how it doesn't work and where you can make things better. So I totally disagree.
I mean, right now you run a $3 million budget.
Yeah.
It's a $50 billion city budget.
I understand that, but
okay.
what's
and,
the largest
and all
budget
the mayors,
you've ever
all
run?
the mayor's people, not even close to that. You've
Right.
run a much larger budget than me.
Absolutely.
That's great. So that helps you out tremendously. I don't know how.
Well,
but,
it does,
in
because
the
I
end,
ran a major agency. I brought an institution back from bankruptcy.
I understand, and still the clamor comes from the fact that most people don't think you're doing a good job. In the
Well,
end,
I
the
think
public
48%
advocate
of
should
the
not.
people that voted
The
for it,
public
I think I do
advocate
do a
should
good
not
job.
become mayor. That's clear.
Well, then you
And
have
in
to
the
change
end-
the charter,
That's
Jay.
exactly what I
But you
proposed
can't
today.
change the charter.
Why can't I change it?
Tell me how the
You
charter
don't think the
changed.
mayor would agree to changing the charter? Because you just said the mayor decides
I-
this. You don't think the mayor
I
would
don't
agree
think
with a
the
new public advocate who
I
says
actually
that
do-
he's not qualified, and like most public advocates are not qualified to be able to be mayor, that the deputy mayor, just for the emergency of 60 days, would run the city
I don't think
until
the people of the city of New York would want somebody appointed by the mayor, somebody who is not elected to a citywide office. I don't think the people would want a deputy mayor to assume that power.
Okay, we will now move on. And before we get to the lightning round, one more round of questions, the final round of questions for each other. And it's up to you, sir.
All right, let's see. The public advocate sits on the board of trustees of the New York City Employees Retirement System. On your official website, you say that the public advocate has fought to ensure the city invests in companies that support principles important to New Yorkers. Being one of the many important roles that you are supposed to be fulfilling as public advocate, can you tell me what the fund's rate of return was last year? Are you satisfied with that rate of return? And more importantly, how can you explain that 3 of the top 12 investments made by the fund are ExxonMobil, Pfizer, and Walmart?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I don't believe that those Walmart, Pfizer, and what was the other one?
ExxonMobil.
And ExxonMobil were brought in this particular cycle. I don't think that this controller and our board put them in at this particular point. The rate of return is something that is determined by the markets, Jay. And
Well, what was it?
Well,
considering you're overseeing it.
The rate, I don't know exactly what the rate of return was. I know that it fluctuated, and it always fluctuates, and that's one of the reasons that we have a board that it's not just of the public advocate, it's of the unions, and it's of the borough presidents, and the controller runs it, and we all work together to try to make sure that the rate of return at least goes up. It has gone down at times, and it goes up at times. We want it to go up, and we are trying very, very hard to ensure that we bring in people who asset managers who actually make the assets go up. Now, again, we don't control the markets.
No, I agree you don't control the markets, but I mean, I would assume that the investments that are being made, because you do appoint who directs the funds, you do oversee the funds. I just find it, I mean, the return was 16.3%, by the way, and that shows pretty good for the overall market. But I just find it interesting that you've issued press releases over the last 4 years, one about drug companies not fulfilling their promise to provide poor patients with life-saving medications. You issued a report criticizing unscrupulous gas station owners. You wrote an op-ed in the Queens Times criticizing Walmart for many things, but you said Walmart's business practices should raise our eyebrows. Yet, when it comes to the investment fund,
well, first
you
of all,
have
Jay,
no problem with them investing in those companies.
That's what I said. I said we work as a group. I, as a trustee, can say to the others, I don't think we should be investing in Walmart.
You're a public advocate, too. I mean, you're not just one of the trustees.
Wait a minute. I could say
let's let her respond.
I'm sorry.
You've asked your question.
I don't think we should be investing in Walmart, but I have only one vote. I am not the person who can decide whether or not we invest in Walmart. My first point. Second point is I do not believe that the investment in Walmart was made during this cycle, the cycle that I've been on the board, and that the controller Thompson has been there. You just don't offload investments because you have you have pensions that you have to pay for. You have other obligations that you have to pay for. Yes, I don't think we should invest in Walmart, but
Why haven't you said that before?
Well,
Okay, but I have to step in and move on. Betsy
I have said
Gotbaum,
it
it's
before.
time for your question of Mr. Golub.
Jay, the federal government is about to issue it's already issued a new program on prescription drugs under Medicare. It's called Medicare Part D. And it is a very, very complicated program. I think you practically have to have a Nobel Prize in mathematics or something to understand the complicated part of this Medicare Part D. I'm very concerned and been very involved in understanding Medicare Part D. What would you do as public advocate to make the millions of seniors who live in New York City try to understand Medicare Part D? What is Medicare Part D, and how would you make them understand it?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It's confusing. And the truth is, I think this is a bad plan. It's a bad plan for America, and it's a bad plan for New York City residents. It's a bad plan for seniors. The more government gets involved in healthcare delivery in this country, the worse healthcare we'll get in this country. And as far as I'm concerned, it is too complicated. There is too much government involvement, and seniors aren't going to get the drugs they need. And on top of that, we're adding $400 to $500 billion in new expenditures to the federal budget, which is already way out of whack, and we're very much in deficit. So as far as I'm concerned, I would do everything I could to explain this plan to seniors in New York City. We'll do everything that would normally be done, issue flyers, hold centers where we could discuss these issues, but you kind of need an accountant to go over this and figure it out. So I agree with you that it's complicated, and I agree with you it's too complicated. So as far as I'm concerned,
but the whole idea where I would have to rebut Jay on this is, first of all, the plan itself is allowing private drug companies and health and managed care companies to run this prescription drug program. So it isn't government; it has been given over by the federal government to the managed care private companies. That's part of the reason it's so complicated. One and two, it's there. There's nothing. It's a federal program. It's going to start, and we have got an obligation, and a big obligation, to explain to our seniors in New York City what is the best thing for them to do, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I plan to
fortunately,
do.
we're investing in Pfizer, so we can support them as we're going along.
Okay. Now it is time to move on, and it is time for our lightning round. Each candidate will be required to answer the question with a yes or with a no. And here we go.
No, we can't comment, right?
As long as you start with a yes or no, you shouldn't comment to be direct. But we'll see how this goes here. I will begin with you, Public Advocate Betsy Gotbaum. Will the next president of the United States be a woman?
Oh, yes.
It would be nice to see, but no.
No. Do you take the subway on a daily basis?
No, not anymore.
No.
Betsy Gotbaum, is the city prepared for a massive flu outbreak?
No.
That's a good question. I would say no.
Can the Public Advocate's Office help stop Medicaid fraud?
Yes.
No.
Is Mike Bloomberg a true Republican?
Yes.
No.
Have you ever shopped at Walmart?
Yes.
No.
If you were in the U.S. Senate, would you vote to confirm Harriet Miers as a Supreme Court
No.
justice?
No.
Is the teacher's contract a good deal for the city,
Yes.
Yes.
for the teachers?
Yes.
Yes.
Should the Fulton Fish Market move to the Bronx?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you ever watched the TV show Commander-in-Chief?
No.
No.
Have you ever smoked marijuana?
Yes.
Yes.
Do the Mets deserve a new stadium more than the Yankees?
No.
More than the Yankees?
More than is the
No.
Yes.
You gave us an out
more
on that
than,
one.
yeah, more than. Thank you.
Would you rather go to the theater than a bowl game?
No.
Yes.
Should the city ever be allowed to use eminent domain for a private, for-profit development project?
No.
Yes.
Did you vote for David Dinkins in 1993?
No.
Yes.
Would you like to one day be mayor of New York City?
Yes.
No.
Was the Republican National Convention good for New York City?
Yes.
No.
Final question, have you ever gambled at a casino?
Yes.
Yes.
And that completes our lightning round. We thank the both of you. And now it is time for our 1-minute closing statements. Ms. Gottbaum.
Well, I want to thank you, Dominic, and New York One for giving us the opportunity to have this debate, and I want to thank the voters of New York who elected me in the primary for another 4 years as a Democrat for public advocate. I'm very proud of the job I've done, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of the next 4 years, and I'm very concerned about the issues of importance to New Yorkers. I want to expand on the successes of the past 4 years, 3 years, and I want to even do more to help in the area of education, the area of transportation, and housing, and I'm particularly concerned about seniors. Our seniors deserve the best we can give them, and we need to make sure that they're taken care of and that we get them everything that they're eligible and that they deserve. So I'm looking forward to my next 4 years. I love being public advocate because I do love helping people. I like helping one person at a time, but I like helping the thousands of people that we have managed to help in my 3.5 years.
Thank you very much, Betsy Gottbaum. Mr. Golub?
This is a race for the survival of this office. I think this election will determine whether this office will be here in 4 years from now, and I think it should. I think it's a very important office. It's a watchdog office. It's an office to make sure that government is run well, run efficiently, that waste and corruption is taken out of government, and I'd like to be that person. The difference between myself and Ms. Gottbaum is the difference between kind of a limousine liberal and a regular guy, and the difference of values that we have in the way we would deal with the office. I represent most New Yorkers, the middle class, regular New Yorkers that are out there that struggle every day with high taxes, high rent, and an expensive New York City. I'm independent and nonpartisan enough to fight anybody I need to, and I don't have the baggage of 30 years worth of experience to hold me back from doing so. So in the end, I hope all of you pay attention to my campaign over the next couple weeks, and I hope you come out on Election Day and vote for me.
Candidates for public advocate, we thank you very much for joining us tonight. That is all the time we have for tonight's debate. On behalf of New York One and New York One Noticias, I'd like to thank tonight's co-sponsors, New York City Newsday, WNYC Radio, and the city's Campaign Finance Board.